Hey, Facebook family, how are you? What a joy and a privilege to be able to gather again on this magnificent, mind-blowing Monday to kind of recap what God had done on this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We are in a new series of entitled Taking It to the Next Level, or even how to get to the next level. That also presupposes that we are at a level. God has brought us to a place in Him, with Him, so that we can be used for Him and by Him. This series is promising in that we need to know what are the essentials that we need to focus in on as believers to get to the next level. And there are some essentials that are non-negotiables, that if we do not consider these essentials, which is according to God's word, I didn't dream these up, they're already there, that takes us to the next level or brings us to the next degree of grace and experiencing God's grace in our lives personally, individually. If we don't do these essentials, you probably will remain where you are. So this week and last week, we looked at what God does and how God can do it and the way He does do it, about bringing us from one degree of grace to the next, or seeing how God has a way of making you and I grow by getting us to the next level. Out of the book of Jeremiah, chapter 3, we looked at how that God tells His people, I need to get you from where you are to where I desire for you to be. And He told them, He said, first of all, you've got to acknowledge your corruption. And He's not talking about non-church folk. He's not talking about unbelievers. He's talking about believers. God used terms like you are being a prostitute. You're acting like an unfaithful wife, unfaithful lover. You're laying down under every tree, worshiping every image of a false god, wood or made of metal. And they made them with their own hands, and then they bowed down to them. And you're laying with these people, and you have forsaken me. God says you're like a prostitute. These other false gods are your tricks. They're your Johns. And you are acting like you are their prostitute. God says, no, return to me. He constantly says that. Acknowledge your corruption. God reveals His character by saying, I am merciful. I'll do for you what you did not do for me. I'll give you what you did not give me. I will give you a character, attribute from my character that you have not given to me. And that is, He says in Jeremiah chapter 3, I'm a merciful God. And He is merciful. So if you are wayward, God says you've got to see your corruption, but understand His compassion and His character. And He'll be merciful. And He said this to His people, in the midst of your corruption, in the midst of my character, He says, you got to give me some confession. You got to acknowledge what you have done in Jeremiah chapter 3. God says, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you rebelled against me. Acknowledge that you refuse to listen to my voice, and He will forgive you. And then He said this, here's my cure. After your confession, I'm going to give you shepherds who's going to feed you with knowledge and understanding. Another translation says, who will feed you with knowledge and skill. Meaning this, first of all, He speaks to the shepherd's person. He says, you are a shepherd, not a CEO, not a manager of another title, not a OOC or COF or whatever. No, you are a shepherd. And shepherds nurture. Shepherds cause them to graze. Shepherds shelter. Shepherds protect. So it is, that's what those that are called that, be comfortable with that about your person. You're a shepherd. What an honorable position. Better than a CEO. Better than president of a corporation. Better than the title of another title of some organization or situation. No, shepherd. Caring. And you can't be a shepherd not unless at one time you was a sheep. So you're able to relate to those who he has called you to shepherd. And always remember this. God never calls a church to a pastor. He always calls a pastor to a church. He never calls a flock to a shepherd, but he always calls a shepherd to a flock. Time is running out. I got more truth in a due time. I'll talk to you next week about what it is that God said if we're going to go to the next level. Peace.